That album, when you went in the studio to put it down, were you expecting to be working on an album that came in, if you include the three tracks that didn't make it onto the album, but the Justice of the Peace, I think it was I Live My Way and Judgment Day, which appeared on B-sides. But this was 80 odd minutes for an album, which was pretty unheard of. If you look at what they'd done before that, I mean, No Prayer was only 43 minutes. I think Fear of the Dark was 57, and that was considered long. So this was an absolute epic.
It was a turning point, really, for Maiden. And I think for Steve as a writer, and he wanted to produce that album as well. If you think about it, we were up against grunge at the time. The other thing that we were up against was MP3 and all of that, and it was just before streaming, but people were swapping files for free, and it was a start. The iPod was just on its way, and EMI, when I joined Iron Maiden, EMI sold every manufacturing plant they owned in the world.
I remember that.
So what does that say? Okay, well, your CD format and streaming, you can have it as long as you want. You're not restricted by 44 minutes of vinyl, to get your grooves wide enough to have a good sound. And I think, though we haven't talked about this, I think Steve at that time thought, you know what? If I can have it as long as I want, I'll have it as long as I feel it should be. And that was it. And we never wrote B-sides either. Every song had to be good enough that would be included on the album. So if it did become a B-side, it was because it didn't quite fit. And
do you think you would have had a different outcome to the sound and the production and the overall feel of that album had Martin Birch still been there?
Well, I was really hoping to work with Martin Birch because he'd done so many classic albums. Not just Maiden, but lots of things in the past that Martin Birch had done. And I was hoping that my first album with Maiden would be one with Martin Birch. So that was a small disappointment that I didn't get to work with Martin Birch on that, because I thought, oh man, what he must know, and just the things that he'd done previously and the incredible singers he'd worked with. I thought that would be great, but it just wasn't to be. So I made the most of what I got, and Steve was a really good producer. We got a great job there.